up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. And we got a lot of things working against us in this video today. It is a bright, sunny, beautiful day here in Tennessee. And unfortunately, I've got these gigantic skylights in my man cave. And I've even got, like, really expensive blinds to keep the sun out. But you wouldn't know it based on the figures that we got here in front of you. So I've tried everything I could to film this in a better way, and if it's a really annoying video, you can tell me so in the comments below, and I'll try to refilm it some other time when it's either overcast or you know, when it's darker out. But because of the figures that we're covering today, it looks like the hand of God is reaching out through the clouds and you shall have these action figures to talk about, Action Figure Grader, and everything's really shiny. So, I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. I'm sorry. I just woke up. I took a long nap. I'm getting old, folks. But anyway, I thought, you know, that last video I did of the unboxing of the Lili Ledi's yesterday, I didn't really have a lot of time to kind of show you some of the intricate details of this really awesome unpainted Lili Ledy C-3PO non-sonic, and I thought since we're going to look at it, let's take a look at some of the other C-3POs in my collection. I've got one other one. I've got a Toy Tony graded AFA fake that, you know, it's one of my early videos on the channel, but I didn't include him in there because, you know, just for whatever reason, I think it's easier just to talk about the loose figures I have that are graded. But anyway, I thought that first, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the C-3PO, since I kind of had to rush through it. That video was way too long yesterday, so I apologize. But this is the Lili Ledy non-sonic welded, unpainted C-3PO. And, you know, a couple of interesting things. First, the mold is slightly different, you know, depending on where they're made. But, you know, there's a bunch of different Hong Kong variants for the normal C-3PO, which is what this is. This is just the first 12 C-3PO, normal standard C-3PO. And, you know, I took a closer look this morning on the molding differences. And it's really difficult to come up with the differences, but the main differences I've noticed are in the kind of the groin area. There's like just some very sharper waves to the lines in the groin area. There's a number of differences in the legs with the lines and some of the kind of detailing and circuitry that they show on the legs. I didn't notice a ton. There may be some very minor differences on the shoulder. You know, you can kind of see some differences there. This is a really difficult figure to film, folks, because it's a very translucent plastic. You know, like we talked about, this is pre-chroming at the Lili Ledy factory. You know, I talked about this briefly yesterday, but, you know, when Lili Ledy went out of business, and, you know, I think it was in '84 or '85 when they finally shuttered their doors, but they had a ton of overstock kind of parts like this that were never assembled. And a lot of it has made it into collectors' hands. I'm sure there's somebody sitting on piles and piles of this stuff, but they're highly sought after now because it's kind of an interesting backstory as part of the Kenner line of figures. And so you'll see overstock, you'll see all kinds of weird figures with the wrong heads, and I've actually got one coming, which I'll show you when it gets here. But you know, just lots of weird, different, unpainted overstock and non-sonic welded figures that have made it over time. Now, what do I mean by non-sonic welded? Well, you know, this C-3PO is a finished, you know, product that you would find like you'd see in on the normal carded figures, and the torsos are split into halves. You got the front half and the back half, and for most of these figures, you know, C-3PO may be an exception because of the gold. They might have used like a glue or something like that, but for, you know, the 99.9% of the figures, they use really high frequency sound to weld the figures together, each half of the torso together with the arms and legs and the head all inserted in, and so it's held together. So a non-sonic welded figure just means that sonic welding process that was typical at these factories was never done. And so that's what this C-3PO is. When this thing arrived, when I bought this from a Facebook seller, you know, the halves were separated. They were not put together. You know, there is a screw, which is atypical. for the Lili Ledy C-3PO. So, you know, he sent it to me all screwed together, but it was very loosey-goosey. It wasn't like, you know, a normal figure. As you can see with the Hong Kong C-3PO, there's like a bolt, a gold kind of bolt that goes in there. The difference with the Lili Ledy is it was held together with just a little screw there. As I mentioned, some Lili Ledys did have this screw with another hole that bores all the way through that back torso piece. So there's two different variants for the C-3PO. One without the back hole, which is much more rare, and then one like this that does not have the back hole. It just has the screw by itself. This is the more common of the two. But the Hong Kongs were like this. They had the bolt that was kind of chromed over. So, you know, here's your Hong Kong. You know, it's just an 85 graded Hong Kong C-3PO, the standard kind of figure. Not a ton of information in terms of variations on this. There's different variations as it relates to how the Hong Kong and date stamps and trademarks and all that stuff was marked on the legs. There's like two lines and where they were marked higher up on the leg versus lower up on the leg, things like that. So those are just some of the variations. The only other major variation is a European version of this figure that still has the Hong Kong date stamp, I believe, but it's silver. Instead of gold, it's a bright silver. Very difficult to find in high grade. But this is your standard Hong Kong, and you found that on most of the card backs. And then I don't have a Lili Ledy that is factory complete. All I have is this one. This is the only one I've got, Lili Ledy C-3PO I have in my collection. But it's just so interesting to see how it looked before the chroming process. It's a very translucent plastic. One other important point to note on these C-3POs, I'm talking about all C-3POs, not just Lili Ledy, but you will find some folks, there are some collectors who do have some C-3POs where they've taken the chrome off with, you know, I don't know what they use, some kind of chemical, just so they can show what the plastic looked like underneath. And I have seen those. I've seen a number of those. They're not graded. You can't grade anything like that, but, you know, people just like to have them, you know, just to show off what some of the plastic looked like underneath. And the plastic does vary. It's not like every one of these is this translucent plastic. Most of them are like this, you know, but I've seen some that have like a dark red, dark blues, dark browns in terms of the plastic used, because in the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You know, when they're putting it on the card, it's all covered with this gold chrome like you see in the background here. So, you know, so each factory, even within the same factory, depending on what plastic they have on hand, maybe, I don't know, you'll see other kinds of colors besides just this translucent. Now, the next question is a very valid one. Well, John, how do you know that the plastic wasn't all like this and then it reacted with the chroming process to get darker? I don't know the answer to that. Somebody else who knows C-3POs better than me may know the answer to that. But, you know, in terms of figures that were factory figures where they have, you know, collectors or whoever has removed the gold, chrome from the body, for whatever reason, there are different colors. So my gut says that because and even ones that have had the gold removed, some of them are still translucent. So my gut says that the plastics used were different depending on the factory, and you know, I could be totally wrong. I'm just guessing. But my guess is that, you know, there's just, you know, since it didn't really matter, as long as the plastic melted and formed the same way and dried the same way, it didn't really matter what color the plastic was, since they were going to be gold anyway. But most of them are like this, but you will see some reds and blues and browns and things like that. So, very interesting though. This is obviously pre-chroming. It doesn't have any kind of gold remnants on it or anything like that, which is why it was able to get graded the way it was. Here's another look at the back, and then I'll shut up about C-3PO, but very cool. I love these contraptions that CAS has come up with for these non-sonic welded figures. Now, one other thing that I'm going to touch on this briefly, but there's a difference between non-sonic welded figures and weak welded figures, or poor welded figures. Those are different. Those are figures that have gone through the welding process, but they did a really bad job of it, and so at some point, due to age or whatever, that welding did not hold together and the figures crumble apart. Those are not gradable. CAS will not grade those because that's basically just considered a faulty figure. Nevertheless, I still found a few cool ones that are weak welds. They're called weak welds or bad welds. I went ahead and sent them in for this kind of casing process, but they will be archived. They will not receive a grade. So you'll have, instead of a grade over here, you'll see an A. But if it's a really cool figure, or a figure that's part of my mini Focus collection, like a Gamorrean Guard or something like that, I went ahead and sent it in just because it's kind of cool for display. But in terms of actually having much value, I doubt there's much value in those. So I've kind of stopped buying them just because they archive them. It's awfully hard to tell the difference between a weak weld and a sonic weld, or excuse me, a non-sonic weld. So at a later date, I'll cover that in a different video. I just I don't have any true non-sonic welds that are not already in grading. But if and when I do get one, I will compare it to a pour welded figure, so you can kind of see the differences. I've got a pour welded PBP Hoth Stormtrooper that I'm holding just for that occasion. So whenever I do find a really cool non-sonic welded figure that I know I want to get graded, we'll compare the two of them so you guys can see the differences. And that way you know what to look out for if you ever decide to start collecting these, because there's a lot of sellers on eBay that will try to sell you one and say it's a non-sonic welded, but in fact it's just a weak weld. So you got to be careful what you're spending your money on. Anyway, I'll shut up about that because I want to save that for a different video. Anyway, you saw this one. This is the Hong Kong first 12, and then the only other two loose graded ones I have are these two. One of them you already saw. This is the one on the left. This is a no COO version of the non-removable limbs Empire Strikes Back version of C-3PO. You can see it's still in the bag there. I've actually bought it bagged, the whole figure bag, but the figure bag had been retaped. So I had them graded loose, and it came back with a great grade, as you guys saw in a previous video. It came back with a 90. This is the no COO version, and then the only other one I have that's graded that's loose right now, other than some bootlegs on the way, is this is a true bagged version that was graded by CAS, and this is the Hong Kong version. The differences between these two, the no COO version, which is this one, they have larger bolts on the, and of course I can't show them to you, but the bolt that holds the figure together, like this one, this is a smaller bolt on the Hong Kong. On the non-COO or the no COO version, the bolt is much larger than, not much larger, but significantly larger than this one. I wish I could show it to you, but because of the way AFA cased it, I can't show it to you, unfortunately. Also, the no COO version is a little bit lighter gold than the Hong Kong version. I don't know if that's coming through. It's really difficult with all the sunlight we have right now, but maybe that'll show there. To me, the naked eye, I can see it, but hopefully you can as well. But this is a slightly darker, more yellowish gold than the no COO version. The only other thing of note is that below the knees, which again I can't even show you because of the way it's cased. Maybe that'll come through right there, but below the knees, the circles are below the knees right here. They are a little bit smaller than the Hong Kong version. So it's very difficult to show you that because of the bag and because of the way these things are cased. But rest assured, I've looked online, and the Hong Kong version has much larger circles around the knees than the no COO version. So just a couple of things to look out for. I know there's a ton of other different variants as it relates to date stamps and things like that, but these are the two major variants for this figure, other than the Lili Ledy. The only other major one is the Lili Ledy. Very expensive, very difficult figure to find complete. You're looking at, for a 80 gradish, 85 gradish Lili Ledy version of the removable limbs C-3PO, you're looking at $600 probably, somewhere in there, minimum. And if it's already graded, you're talking at least $800 for it. So anyway, you can certainly get it for less for lower grades though. But anyway, that's I just wanted to show you guys some of the other ones in my collection, but it was more than anything to talk about this and what does non-sonic welded mean. So when you guys see some of my other figures, I didn't even show you this like an idiot, but it says non-sonic welded overstock. So they confirmed it was a true non-sonic weld versus a weak weld. And that's all I wanted to talk briefly about that. And I promise you that whenever I do get another true non-sonic welded figure that has not been graded yet, I will do a comparison with that PBP Stormtrooper that's a weak weld, so you guys can know what to look out for. And yet again, I ran to 15 minutes. I need to shut up. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.